all 4 years of high school. It was a blind date for senior prom, so I was too afraid to call this girl I liked. My friend set me up with another girl. So that was my high school experience. Yeah, it is kind of fun. It was sad, but it's funny too. Sad, kind of funny. So that was my high school experience. And I applied to, if you can believe this, 17 colleges and universities with the notion that there was something about me that made me unique. But I just couldn't articulate what it was. So most of the schools rejected me. So, pretty shy kid, afraid of rejection, now gets rejected. I barely got in off the wait list at Brandeis University. And when I got in, I said, look, these 4 years of high school for me were miserable. I need to do the exact opposite. I can't go through this experience again. Not another 4 years of this. So I decided to reach out to every person I saw. So I would walk around campus, and literally everywhere I went, I would just run up to people literally the first week and be like, hey, I'm Sam, how are you?
I'm Colleen.
Good to meet you. So that's literally the kind of interaction I would have, and I realized, wow, all of a sudden everybody's accessible. I mean, you can go up to anybody and just say hi. Hey, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good. Where are you from?
I'm from Northeastern.
I love it. Boston. So that's what I suddenly realized, is that everybody is accessible. And this whole notion that, you know, as a shy kid, that was all psychological, that I could break out of that mold and be the person I was meant to be. And so that experience early on in my life really changed me. And at first, I just wanted to be very social. In high school, I ran for student body president every year and lost every year. Every year. At Brandeis, I won every single year. The only difference was that I was willing to reach out and say hi. Just willing to take that risk. So first, freshman year, I just wanted to party. So I went out, I socialized, I had a great time. And then at a certain point, about 3 months in, I read 2 books that changed my life. And these 2 books transformed the way I look at these issues. One book is Mountains Beyond Mountains, about the work of Paul Farmer and Partners in Health. Just by a show of hands, who's read Mountains Beyond Mountains? Okay. I recommend every single person here read that book. It talks about Paul's work at 23 years old, leaving Harvard, going to Haiti, working as a practitioner on the ground. Now Partners in Health, 25 plus years later, is working in more than 12 countries around the world on global health equity. So I read Paul's book, and then I read a second book. And that book is The End of Poverty by the economist Jeffrey Sachs. By a show of hands, who's read the book The End of Poverty? Okay. I recommend you all read that as well. What I learned totally changed my life and my perspective on these issues. Up until this point, at 18, 19 years old, I knew nothing about the world. Very little. But understanding that 1.2 billion people are living on less than $1.25 a day, I suddenly realized that we have a responsibility to address that. That rich and poor nations can be a part of the solutions. When you realize that things like bed nets can prevent malaria, and it's really just about getting resources to those in need, I knew that we could do more than we were doing. And so I decided, look, I've got to try something. Now, I read this book, The End of Poverty. I put down the book at 19 years old. This guy, this economist who wrote the book, he's a world-famous economist at Columbia University. He's a special advisor to the UN Secretary General on the Millennium Development Goals. At 19 years old, I put down the book, picked up the phone, and I cold called Jeffrey Sachs. And 2 days later, I came down to New York City and I met with his team. I said to them, look, I'm 19 years old. I don't have all the answers. But I know our generation can do more. I know we can do a lot more on these issues. These are human issues. These are human rights. And we have a responsibility to make them real. I came back to Brandeis. We started fundraising. Just small to start. We did bake sales. We teamed up. One piece of advice for every EWB chapter: don't try and go at it alone. Find other groups on campus. If there's concerts going on, team up with them. people are often more than willing to give when they realize that there's shared interest. And so we mobilized and raised $5,000 for bed nets to prevent malaria. And at that point we could have said, hey, this is fantastic. I could have thrown it on a resume and said, hey, I did my part, now I'm on to making a lot of money and doing other things. But that's not what it's about. It's about something much deeper than that. And so I realized this is a lifelong journey. I want to carry this through. My friends want to carry this through. We had started one student organization at Brandeis. But we said, look, there's got to be other students out there that feel the same way we do. And so in the fall of 2007, we convened 6 student organizations from 5 campuses at Harvard University from across the city. We had 2 groups working on clean water projects, one in Nicaragua, one in Uganda. How many of you are working on clean water in some way, shape, or form? Yeah, yeah, I always knew that about EWB, a lot of water, which is awesome. But here's the thing. There was a lot of technical expertise that could be shared, and those groups weren't sharing their knowledge. And that's ridiculous, because if you have to consistently reinvent the wheel and start from scratch and say, oh yeah, how does this work again? When there's other groups doing almost the same kind of project, we should be talking to each other. It's that simple. So that's really what we said. Look, let's share best practices. And then how do we broaden the conversation so that there's more people at the table, so we can really build a national student movement to end extreme poverty? So 6 months later, we answered that question in part with our first Millennium Campus Conference. 1,000 students showed up from around the world at MIT. Paul Farmer, Jeffrey Sachs, John Legend, Ira Magaziner, ambassadors, you name it, they all showed up. Jeff Sachs, Paul, John, they all joined our board of advisors. They got behind what we were doing. We still didn't quite know what we were doing, but we knew we were onto something. And that was 2008. So we started the Millennium Campus Network in our dorm rooms, literally. That's where it all began. And fast forward 2013, 5 years later, this is the bottom line for us. We're empowering student leaders to take global action. We're finding the most motivated student leaders and giving them the resources they need to better engage the communities they serve in. So you all, many students around the country, we estimate about 2,000 student organizations, are doing some work that advances one or more of the UN Millennium Development Goals. Just by a show of hands, who here is familiar? UN Millennium Development Goals? Excellent. So making sure, whether it's on education, healthcare, clean water, environmental sustainability, any of these issues, there's a couple thousand organizations on campuses today across the US working on these goals. We want to make sure that that work is effective and sustainable. Bottom line. So we have a conference every year, and I'll invite you early, ahead of time. It's October 10th to 12th next year in Florida. We're going to convene 1,000 students in person and then 5,000 from around the world via global live stream. Paul Farmer, who I mentioned, will be there. A lot of other global leaders will be there. We definitely want EWB to be a big part of that conversation. And the other thing we launched in Boston is a fellowship program. So again, who here is from Boston by a show of hands? Okay, so for all of you, we launched a fellowship program this year where we're basically empowering 10 student organization leaders over an academic year to make them effective and sustainable, to make their organizations really manage to outcomes and understand their theory of change. And so we just launched that program. We're going to invest up to $10,000 in each of them at the end of this year-long cycle. So it's something you could apply for next year. And it's been an amazing journey to the point where, as a shy kid in high school, somebody who at 19 picked up the phone and made one call, to be standing in front of all of you right now and to realize, wow, we have a lot of potential, that you all have a lot of potential, that your voice matters. And I want to share with you, I guess, 2 points. One is that, how many of you are working on fundraising right now? Okay. How's it going? Somebody raise your hand. Somebody raise your hand. Tell me how it's going. I want to know. How's the fundraising going? Yeah.
Terrible.
Okay. Why?
Can't raise enough money and we don't have enough ideas. Can't get an event that will work.
Okay. By a show of hands, who else feels the same way? Okay, so for some of you, it's going well. Yeah. Okay. What's going well?
Well, we recently, our chapter received a couple of grants, both through EWB and through elsewhere. And I think our PR chair has done, and our fundraising chair have done a really great job of getting our name out on campus and getting help from our university.
Awesome. What was your name?
Right here, Brian.
Brian. What's your name?
Katie?
Katie. Have you two met? No? Okay. After this, can you two meet?
Sure.
Awesome. That is basically, in essence, what we do. We want to really have peer-to-peer connections where, I mean, honestly, a lot of the solutions to your problems the solutions are right in this room. You have an incredible network around the country at EWB. Engineers Without Borders is a powerhouse. And so all you have to do is tap into existing membership and see where the connections can be made. And so for me, the one piece I'd say about fundraising, because I know it's always on people's mind, always have the courage to make the ask. That's the biggest thing. Yeah, I've seen so many student organizations and they say, oh, we tried so hard, we tabled, and we threw this event and not enough people showed up. I'm going to be the one to say this, and it's the truth. Tabling, from my vantage point, is not bad, but if I had a limited amount of time, which you all have, I would say it's a waste of your time. And I'll tell you why. If you really want people's attention, you go up and you be proactive and you approach them. Don't wait for them to come to you. You want money, you ask for it. Ask for that support as a partner because they share your values and your commitments. If you wait for people to give, you're going to be waiting a long time. You really have to take the lead in the initiative. Yeah.
So I just wanted to share a positive experience, which is this conference. We had a lot of sponsors. We had a great sponsorship team, and I just wanted to reflect on that. What Sam just said was like 100% true. We called so many people. We called various offices. We called it cold calling, which most likely some people won't call you back. And we had a great team of dedicated people. You don't need like 20 people, and you just call people, and like Sam said, you just approach them. And because you have something great that people want to support, you will get yeses.
Awesome. Yeah, that's what made all this possible. So, yeah, great example. Thank you. So that's, I think, a really important message, and one that I learned because when we started out, we had no money. We were in our dorm rooms, we had meetings in our pajamas, and you know, for the first couple of years, it was absolutely just this idea that we could build a national student movement around the Millennium Development Goals, linking groups together, but I didn't even know how to ask for money. I had no clue. And we applied for fellowships and we lost, we got rejected, and it wasn't going well. But one thing that I always learned, and I'll tell you where I got that advice from in a minute, but the thing I learned is to always have the courage to make the ask. So I'll never forget, I went to this woman, Anita Sharma. She worked at the UN, and I sat down with her, and I'd been to the UN about 5 times. And every time I went to the United Nations, I said, look, we're supporting your goals. Please fund us. I said, no, we're not interested. We get proposals, Sam, we get proposals like this every single day. Every single day. I said, you gotta be kidding me. There's no way. We're really special. We've got something going on. They said, no. So we did the conference anyways that first year. And when you can get 1,000 people together and global leaders together, all of a sudden they started to take us seriously. We met with them. I presented our budget. I was hoping for $2,000 or $3,000, which for us would be one of our first big grants. Like, that was a big deal. And I'll never forget, Anita looks down at the budget. She kind of scans it over. She reads about the project proposals. She looks back up at me. She says, how about $20,000 to $30,000? So I said, 30,000 sounds great. And that was our first big grant. And so we started there. Then the Genzabar Foundation, Microsoft, HP. Now we have media sponsors like the Boston Globe and Glamour Magazine, and we built out this huge network and community of partners. And it was just that willingness to make the ask. So I've had so many cases where a donor won't even, a partner that could be a donor, they won't even tell you that they even give you grants until you ask. I met with one foundation and I knew they were doing work like ours, but honestly we've been working together about 8 months. They never even brought up the fact that they had money to give until I said, oh, by the way, we're doing this project, do you fund things like this? And they said, absolutely, $25,000 like that. We found actually our partnership through Microsoft was through Twitter, okay? So social media is a powerhouse. You can connect to anyone. It's a great equalizer. So you can reach people that ordinarily you could never reach. And the cool thing is a lot of companies, their VPs, their presidents, their whoever it is that they're actually on Twitter as well. And they're using their own Twitter a lot of the time. And so if you message them, if like 20 of you message some VP and say, hey, take us seriously, this is something to consider, more often than not, you'll get a conversation. You're not always going to get a yes, you're going to get a lot of no's, but it's worth it. I think the biggest thing I wanted to share about fundraising, because I knew it was on everybody's mind all the time, is that the no's that you get are often not that bad. There's often this fear that the person is like going to slap you in the face and say, how dare you ask me for money? Oh. Doesn't happen. I've been doing this work 8 years now. It does not happen. The worst thing that happens is, more often than not, it'll be a polite no. They'll say, oh, this is great. When somebody tells you this is nice work, that's a bad sign. That's like, they're patting you on the shoulder like, good job, kid, move on. But when somebody really takes an interest, there's a lot of money out there. There are a lot of resources out there. On each of your campuses, one of our advisors, Jeff Sachs, was actually just talking to us about this. You all should be looking at your own alumni, board of trustees, people on your campus that could get behind what you're doing. It's so important, and they have a vested interest in you as future alums of that campus as well. They were once sitting where you're sitting. So they really do believe, I think more often than not, in what you do as well. But I want to share with you the best piece of advice that I ever got in 27 years that prepared me to be the person that I am today. Because if it wasn't for this one piece of advice, I would not be standing in front of you. I would absolutely not be here. And I would never have become the activist that I am. So, the thing about this experience that I want to share is just that people talk about activism a lot. They talk about changing the world and saving the world and all these beautiful messages. And to be honest with you, you really have to look past all that. You have to look past all that, because, am I allowed to swear in here, or are you all very strict about it? I'm going to be honest with you right now. A lot of that is bullshit, okay? It really is. A lot of people talk a good game about how much they care about the world. It's just talk, and that's it. And a lot of the nonprofit world is just business. I hate to tell you, and it's business in the worst sense of the word, not the best. It's an industry. And it's not really there for the reasons you think it's there, hope it's there. And 8 years in, I can tell you that. There's some organizations out there that are really about the bottom line. And when I say bottom line, I mean it in the best sense of the word. They really want to see results and manage the outcomes. And I've looked at student organizations, I've researched them over these 8 years carefully. What EWB is doing is one of the best. Absolutely, and that's why I'm here. I don't come to a lot of conferences like this, but I wanted to come here because I think the values of EWB and the model is a really smart one. But you have to watch out and be careful and really think about, not just as organizations, but as individuals, why are you even here? Why do you even care about this work in the first place? What is it really about for you? And is it just something that you're planning to do in college for a couple of years and move on? Or is this something that's going to be a part of your DNA, your identity for the rest of your life? And my hope is that it's a part of who you are, not just what you do. So this piece of advice I gained because for one instance in my life, I changed the way I would live. And this is what happened. I was walking along in Washington, D.C., and as I'm walking, I come across a homeless man. And normally, I don't know what the experience is like for many of you, but normally you come across a homeless man and more often than not, you ignore him. You walk right past him. In fact, not only that, you pretend he doesn't exist. Just raise your hand if you know exactly what I'm talking about right now. Okay. That to me is the kind of bullshit I'm talking about. So we talk about all these values and how much we care. And then when the issue is right in front of us and people are right in front of us and it becomes a real human being, we look away. Why? There is no good excuse. I mean, you could get all philosophical and make some case for it. No, it's nonsense. There are people in need everywhere around the world. Over 1 billion people living on less than $1.25 a day, but also right here at home, right outside this community in New Brunswick, in New York City, in Boston, you name it, everywhere. And if we're serious about this work, that's got to be a big part of what we do. So usually I would just walk by. I would totally ignore this person. But this one time in my life, 19 years old as well, I decided I'm going to do something different. I'm going to do something a little bit different. So I sit down on the sidewalk. I sit down with the sidewalk with this man, and we share lunch, and we have a conversation for about 45 minutes. And about 20 minutes into the conversation, I said, look, I have to ask you something. How do you survive? How do you survive? And we're sitting on the sidewalk. He looks up at me. He looks up at the passerby, and he says, I'm not afraid to talk to anyone. I'm not afraid to look up at those above me and ask for help. Never be afraid to talk to anyone. Never be afraid to talk to anyone. That's the single best piece of advice I got in 27 years. Not from some world-famous economist or doctor or politician or celebrity or teacher or anyone else. Best piece of advice I ever got was from a homeless man. And that single message is something I've tried to carry out. It's really hard to actually live that out every day. But every time you make that decision, never be afraid to talk to anyone. Maybe there's somebody in here, in this very room, you wanted to say hi to, but you were afraid to. I don't know why. Whatever the reason is. Maybe you thought they wouldn't want to talk to you. So you move on. Every one of those moments is a missed opportunity. And every time you actually choose to step up, well, maybe they will talk to you, maybe they won't. But it's worth giving it a shot. And that's what I learned. And the thing is, if we're serious about this work, if you're really serious about empowering communities around the world, if that matters to you, think about this. This man is doing this. He's saying never be afraid to talk to anyone because he doesn't have a choice. If he doesn't make that choice every day to reach out to people, he doesn't survive. If we're serious about this work, then we have to act in solidarity and do the same thing and get out of our comfort zones and talk to new people. And so that piece of advice completely transformed the way I live, completely transformed the activism and my commitment to this space. So fast forward to 2010, and I'm at a conference in Miami. That's a nice place for a conference. And I'm in Miami, and I see this actor. It's President Clinton does an event called CGIU. Any of you heard of that one by show of hands? So we go to this event, and I see this actor named Cal Penn. Does anyone know who Cal is? Yeah? So Cal's there. He's awesome. He's an actor, activist. He was in this movie, The Namesake, but you may better know him for, unfortunately, Harold and Kumar. Go to White Castle. He's Kumar. And he's at this event. and I see him and he's about to go on stage. Now, basically this is what happens. So imagine that you're Cal Penn. So stand up. So come on over. So this is Cal. So Cal's like, hanging out by the stage. He's getting ready. Everybody else, honestly, everybody else is so mesmerized. They're like, oh, what's up? It's Cal Penn. Wow. Yeah, exactly. It's like that. It's very awkward. People are looking at him. They're like, whoa, we can't go say hi. I'm like, oh, no. Never be afraid to talk to anyone. That's it. So, hey Cal, I'm Sam Vaghar from Boston. How are you? Good. It was that simple. It was that simple. You can sit down, Cal. Thank you. So, it was really that simple. Cal says hi, we connect. And I say, listen, Cal, I run the Millennial Campus Network. We're empowering student leaders to take global action. This is what we're all about. I pitch him in about 20 seconds. I'm doing a networking session right after this, I think. So you can come to that session if you want to learn specifics around how to pitch and how to network. But the bottom line is, I pitch Cal, and he says, and here's the thing. He says, well, this is interesting. Look, if you ever want to come to the White House and talk more about this, let me know. Yeah, I would love to, Cal. Thanks. So the story was that Cal had left Hollywood for a little bit to work with President Obama on youth engagement. And so I immediately say, yeah, look, I'm going to be in Washington, D.C. in 2 weeks, and I'd love to meet with you. I had no plans to be in D.C. But I immediately booked flights. I get down there. And I meet with some of his colleagues, and we begin a conversation. So a couple things that I learned right away, and I would write this down, it's good. When you get a business card, when you get a connection, follow up right away. Literally that night or by the next morning, within 24 hours. If you wait 2 weeks, a month, or whatever until your idea is perfect, it's too late. The person will totally forget. They're going to either forget who you are or the spark, the energy that you had between the two of you when you actually met is gone, more often than not. So reach out right away. I did that, met with the team, and then keep in touch with that person month to month. Keep the conversation going. Check in. Hey, how are things going? What's new? And one thing I always said to Cal is there anything I can help you with? Is there any way we can be supportive of what you're doing to engage and empower young Americans to make a difference? 10 months later, we get a conversation going, and Cal says, look, we're doing an initiative called White House Youth Roundtables. And we want to hear about what young Americans are talking about, what you care about. I said, great. We're going to mobilize. We sent out a national email. We got groups around the country to do small roundtables, much smaller than this, just 10 people at a time sitting around a table talking about the issues we care about, why we care about global health equity, global development, international development, why these issues matter, what we're doing individually and collectively in our initiatives. And so about 3-4 weeks later, we get a call from Cal again. It says, this is great. Do you want to come back to the White House for a debrief meeting? And I said, no, I'm kind of busy, sorry. No, I said, of course I'm coming back. So I immediately get down to DC. And we go, and it's just 10 national youth leaders. So we go in, who here has been to the White House? Show of hands. Okay, wow, not that many. Ah, okay. Well, and who here's been in the West Wing? West Wing, yeah, nice. Okay, so you all know, what's your name, Matt? Yeah, so Matt, you know, like, how big is the West Wing? Yeah, so how many of you have ever seen the show West Wing? Yeah, so the interesting thing that I, walking in there, realized is, like, it's smaller than I thought it would be. That was kind of what stuck out to me. I thought it was going to be, it's where the president hangs out. I thought it's going to be, but it was small. We walked in, Jay Carney, his press secretary, walks right by. He says, what's up? We're like, hey. Janet Napolitano, Homeland Security's there. The whole team is kind of walking through, and we're just mesmerized. And Cal's in the Roosevelt room, which is this small room. It's just one single table, and he motions us in. So it's just 10 national youth leaders. We come into the room. We don't know who we're going to be meeting with. Valerie Jarrett, who's Obama's senior advisor, is in the room. We're like, whoa, okay, this is serious. We sit down and we start talking about our respective organizations, and we touch on all the big issues of the day that young people are active on. And about halfway into the meeting, basically halfway into the meeting, Cal says, look, I've got to go, I'll be back in 5 minutes. We're like, okay, sure. So 5 minutes go by, and quite literally, I don't know how best to describe it, but imagine this wall right here. Imagine this wall just opens up. It's like there's a secret door right there, honestly. And so the wall just kind of opens, and we're all looking around confused. Everyone stops talking, and in comes, no joke, in comes Bo Obama. The dog comes strolling in. And we're like, what is this? What is going on right now? And right behind, in walks Barack Obama. And he's like, hey, I'm Barack Obama. We're like, yeah, we know who you are. So he walks in, and so imagine you're the president. Darren, come on up. So imagine Darren is President Obama. And so here's the thing. So the president walks in. You can stand right there. And we're like, wow. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's got the clothes down. Let me get a picture of this. This is good. Yeah. So the president walks in. We're shocked. We're like, whoa. But here's the thing. With any meeting, with this conference, with any meeting that you ever have specific outcomes in mind. Have specific goals in mind of what you want to accomplish. So, I had a feeling that you might be at this meeting, Mr. President, so I came prepared. My colleague and I wrote handwritten notes to the President and First Lady about the work we're doing. So, we write these notes, and the President walks around to greet each of us and shake our hand. So when the President comes up to me, I say, hey, I'm Sam Vaghar from Boston. What's up, Sam? Yeah, that's exactly what he said. What's up, Sam? So, and I pull out these notes, and I just slip him these notes. And he's like, what? A couple notes? You're shocked. Yeah, exactly. So the President's shocked. And then the President sits down. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Give the President a round of applause. I've told that story a few times. That's the best presidential reenactment I've ever seen. So the president sits down, and this is what happens. He talks for about 10-15 minutes about the power of young people, about why what we're doing matters. That you can't wait until you're 50, 60, 70 years old to make a difference, that change starts right now. 18, 19, 20, 21. How many of you are 18 to 21 in that age range? By show of hands, okay. So, that you are the leaders, not of tomorrow, but of right now. And that it's so important to step up and take action now. And so he shares this message with us, and about 15 minutes in, I realize he's getting ready to rap. He's doing the thing that you could probably better act out than me, but he's kind of giving the point, like, thank you for what you do, thank you for what you do, and you can tell he's kind of getting ready to rap. So I think to myself, okay, I'm sitting, and by the way, literally, what is your Gina? So literally, as far as Gina is to me, that's how far we are apart. I'm sitting like right here, you're sitting right there. It's even closer, so I'm within like 5 feet of the president. I could reach out and give him a tap or something, but he's like that close. So I'm thinking, okay, you gotta make the most of the opportunity, never be afraid to talk to anyone, even if it's the President of the United States of America. What am I gonna do? I raise my hand. Now this is kind of a rude thing to do, because number one, I already slipped him notes, which probably the Secret Service doesn't appreciate, but I didn't care. And then number two, I raised my hand as he's talking. So, that's kind of, sorry Mr. President, a little bit rude, but it got his attention. So he's saying, thank you for what you do, thank you for what you do. And then I'm right in front of him, and everyone in the room can see. So he can't ignore me. So the president says, thank you, Sam, go ahead. So, Sam, go ahead. So I said, Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, there's an invitation in those notes for you and the First Lady to get involved in the work we're doing. Now, everyone's cracking up. I'm pitching the President in front of everyone. But I don't care. This is our one opportunity. You gotta make the most of every opportunity. So we reach out and we make that pitch. And then I tell the President that, look, what you proved to our generation, what you proved to each and every one of us is that anything is possible. Anything is possible. Regardless of politics, put that aside. I'm 27 now. If you told me honestly, candidly, at 10 years old that a man named Barack Hussein Obama would be President of the United States of America, I would not have believed you. His leadership is a bold statement, and this is what I shared with him. And of course, after I spoke, every other hand goes up. Oh, Mr. President, I have this project, that project. Now everyone's in on it, and that's great. But eventually the president leaves, and a month later we get a call from the State Department. And State calls and they say, Sam, would you like to go on a speaking tour in Sarajevo across Bosnia and Herzegovina and share your story with youth and educators? Yeah, absolutely. So we go do that in 2011. Then this year, State calls again and they say, would you like to go to Morocco and do the same thing? And so we were just in Morocco meeting with youth and educators there. And at the end of that trip, there was a 3-day enrichment seminar. They brought together 35 youth leaders from 14 countries from across the region and from across the Middle East and North Africa. I met this 25-year-old doctor/journalist. And at 25 years old, this is what happened in 2006. His name is Nasser. In 2006, he's shot in the leg. It's Baghdad, it's a war zone. He goes to the emergency room. There are no doctors on call to treat him because the doctors are treating 3 shot police officers. So he gets treated for a gunshot wound by a nurse without anesthesia. And now, in 2013, he himself is a doctor working in Baghdad at 25. When you meet people like that, you realize there's leadership everywhere. There are young leaders everywhere on this planet. And this whole notion, the things that we see in the media that are so negative about certain parts of the world are totally misinformed. They're telling you one small side of the story. But when you actually are on the ground working with communities like so many of you do every year, you realize that there is leadership everywhere. And we just have to find those leaders, invest and partner with them, and listen to them. And so that was a really profound experience for me. And I wanted to make sure to share with you the most powerful message that I ever got, which this one to me, it means a lot, and it kind of puts everything in perspective because I've been doing these presentations all over the country and around the world, and this is by far one of the most powerful ones I got. This is a young woman, Layla, from Agadir in Morocco, and again, the reason I called out the quote-unquote bullshit is because you start to realize, like, I love this conference. I love it, the whole notion of all the work we're all doing. But if we meet again in 40, 50 years and it's the same conversation, that's a big problem. If we have not changed the status quo, that's a big problem. We need to get people to really shift the paradigm, shift the conversation. And this message to me is what it's all about. So Layla writes, Dear Mr. Vaghar, thank you for coming yesterday to Agadir. Your speech was pretty inspiring. I must confess that when I decided to go to the training, I was not really expecting to learn something. But I was wrong. I've learned that we shouldn't feel embarrassed to ask for help, and we shouldn't deny who we really are, because we can never improve if we keep deluding ourselves. It was really courageous from your part to share with us your story, and I would like to share mine with you as well. I will try to make it short. During most of my life, During most of my life, I was struggling to be normal, to act normal, and to try to prove that I am like anyone else, even though I'm in a wheelchair. However, I live in a society that is not fully aware of what it means to be handicapped. And it applies to everyday life. For example, yesterday I was going to leave EMA, my school, because the elevator was not working. And I did not want my father to carry me to the 3rd floor, but he insisted. And I ended by accepting. What is really great about this country is that people are helpful when you ask them. But the infrastructure of most buildings does not make access easy for people in wheelchairs. Sometimes I think that to the government, I don't even exist. And the consequences are great to my family and friends. And when I say it, I mean all people in wheelchairs certainly live the same frustrations. Now I go to the university and my class is in the 2nd floor, no elevator. And each time, imagine this, each time she goes to school, my father helps me to get there. It's with the help of someone else, mostly classmates. To be honest with you, I am sick of having to cause trouble to people like that. I don't want to have to think if the place I'm going to is accessible or not, and that's why I'd like to contribute to the creation of a community that acknowledges the existence of different persons and to make life easier for them rather than harder. There is an association, basically an NGO. There is an association, but it's located in Rabat, the capital of Morocco, and their activities do not reach us. 2 people and I tried to form a kind of sub-association of AMM, the association, for like 2 years now, but we have not found anyone willing to help us. And I would like to ask, according to your experience, how is it possible to create an awareness in the heart of people? How is it possible to create awareness in the heart of people? And how can we instill ambition, or rather willingness, in our community to help improve the lives of people who are imprisoned in their little corners because the outdoor world does not have the requirements to welcome them? Again, thank you for your help. Sincerely, Layla. That's what this is all about. That's why we do what we do. And you all, many of you are engineers. You're going to be engineers. My dad is he's a civil engineer with U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And I see the way a lot of engineers approach the world. And you, are by nature, problem solvers. So the world needs that. We need you. But always remember that, and a lot of other people have said this, I'm sure this weekend, that these aren't just problems, technical problems, they're human problems. But the solutions are also human solutions. And people like Layla are leaders themselves. Nobody's a victim. Every person has a role to play, and every community has a role to play in building greater equity in our society. And the last point I wanted to leave you with is just that activism, it's not about this. It's not about speeches. It's not about saying, even honestly, I'm a part of MCN or I'm a part of EWB. That's really important. That's a big part of who you are. But activism in its most fundamental form is about how you treat yourself and how you treat those closest to you, your friends and your family. Because at the end of the day, those are the people that you're going to have greatest impact on. And if you get that part right, if you treat those around you with respect, I think a lot of other people, a lot of other problems are going to be solved. So, on behalf of the Millennium Campus Network, we're proud to partner with you. We'll do everything we can to help as partners. And really, just sincerely, I want to say thank you all for what you do every single day. Thank you.
I'd just like to thank Sam again for that wonderful speech.
my passion for this organization. By the way, I'm Maya Saltzman, the president of the Rutgers Student Chapter, and I'd just like to thank you all for being here. Just a couple quick reminders. As you're filing out of the NPR, please grab food on your way out. There's tons left. Also, after the breakout sessions, please come back here for the snack break at 11, and at 11:30 the closing remarks. Again, thank you guys.
Want to go right back down?